show, but oh well.
I might as well mention this for anyone who's listening. We have our rent house has no tenants in it. I think we're gonna do a little bit of updates to it, but at some point we're gonna be looking for some renters
So
to.
what happened? Did your renters
Oh,
just
they
desert
moved
you,
to
or
like Ohio or something. I mean, I wouldn't say they deserted us. They'd been there forever, for a long time, but they just got a job in another state, so they left.
all right? So how do you like being a landlord? Matt Ray seems it's not going well for him, but like, has it been better for you?
Well, the like so many things in life, when it's going well, you don't even realize it's happening. It's just passive income, as they say. And then when you've got to worry about stuff, it's super annoying. It's annoying when you live in the city, and it's annoying when you live in a different time zone across an ocean. So,
It's
so
good. It's good to hear. So I don't know. All problems are the same. Maybe that's a version
But
of my.
I think we've talked to several people, and the advice is we should put in the effort to keep the house. And I think it's part of the diverse portfolio that we
Oh,
have
really?
here
Who did you
at
talk
Cote
to? Who?
Scotek LLP.
I was gonna say,
So,
like, who did
well,
you
we
actually
have
speak?
we have a real estate agent who's a good friend of Kim's from
Okay.
from Houston. She's done all of our real estate stuff. She always gives us advice. She's big investor, real estate investor, and also agent over there in the old Austin.
Okay.
And we talked with her the other day, and she asked you the question. She's like, "Are you going to move back? And if you do move back, are you going to move here?" And blah blah blah. And like, when do you think
Uh-huh.
you're going to move back? Kind of typical financial analyst, not analyst, sort of advisor questions. And then she was like, "Okay, given your profile, you should just update it and rent it out. That's
Okay.
what you
So
should
the
do."
real estate person. Now, did you talk to like a purely financial person that doesn't involve, because I think their advice would likely be,
No,
is
no,
this the old like talk to a surgeon, get surgery, talk to a like, I
yeah.
don't know, physical therapist, get therapy kind of conversation, or
Well, I think
did
I
you?
think I think every time we've talked to a financial advisor, they tell us to sell our real estate.
Okay,
They're all
that's good.
about like
Yeah,
they're
they're like,
all
we need
about
the
like
money. Yeah, I want to
yeah.
put this in the market for you or
I think I
whatever.
think I think see, and this is where like over the years, I got to go close this door since we're not officially recording yet. I can do
Okay.
something weird. Or I don't know, maybe this is good cold open content so that you will have to edit it, but whatever. I think my
Well, hold on.
my
Should we just start then, or anything? Are you good with these topics? I mean,
yeah, these are all great. Yeah.
okay. All right. Well,
Let
okay.
me kind of summarize here, and we'll go through it.
Okay. Then you give me a clean pickup, and we'll start. Okay.
Uh-huh. Well, we
Hold on. Hold on. Now I messed up. This is the beginning, right?
okay.
Hold on. All right. Hold on.
Should I tweet this or something?
No, no. I've already tweeted it. I messed you up there. I was confused. I was looking down, and I was like, okay, I didn't know. I didn't realize which. Okay, we're starting now. So go ahead.
Well, if anyone's interested, I don't know when exactly it's going to be. Sometime coming fall, CY 2022. There is going to be a lovely little house in Crestview available to rent. That is our tenant moved out because they got a new job, moved to a new state. And I thought what we should do, Brandon. We're gonna do. This is gonna be another episode we call spreadsheets in your mind, where we don't have an actual spreadsheet we're going to be working with, but we're going to construct it in our brain holes. And
Like
that
it.
is okay. So the question is, you have a rental house, right? Let's say you're the type of person who's listening to this podcast. You're doing okay in life. Things are fine. You got a good job. You got your 401k or your pension funds or whatever it is you got going on. Now you live somewhere else. You have another residency and you've got a rent house that's come up. And then every time that the rent house is empty, every time there's a vent, you basically reevaluate: should we sell the house or keep the house, right? And I want to just run through a couple of scenarios that are there. There's three scenarios at least that I have in my mind. I'll pause after each. You can jump in, add some commentary. So one, I'm going to go from, let's say, worst reasoning to potentially best reasoning. I don't know. First of all, you know how it is, Brandon. You always give three options. One of them is definitely always bad.
Always
And
bad.
then
Yes.
and then one of the remainder is, it looks like it might be good, but after you do a few slides, you realize it's bad. who knows? Who knew you ended up with that thing you talked about over lunch when you kicked this project off 2 months ago in the first place? Big mystery. But like, so the second option, I think this is what I'm going to call the financial advisor option. Now, a financial advisor, they're great at the spreadsheets. And I think the analysis they put in, the first question they're going to ask is, when do you want to retire? Always the first question, right? And which is fine, right? And the next question they're going to ask is like, what's your risk profile? You know, how risky do you want to be? Blah blah blah. So let's go through that crap. And what the financial advisor is going to say, always with real estate, I found, is that you should sell it, right? Now they want to extract out the cash, and they want to put it in what they see as a lower risk, lower cost, lower hassle. They don't really say hassle, but that's part of risk and like cost, is that if you just stick it in an index fund or whatever, it's more or less, they would never say a word like guaranteed, but they would say it seems like it's basically going to go up 5, 8, 10% compounded. And so over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, that's going to make a ton of money, right? And there's zero risk. I mean, there's less risk than a real estate market that might crash. Your property taxes might go up. While you're renting it, you've got to buy a new air conditioning unit. Like, you got to replace a floor. So like, there's all these, what would you call it? Not unaccounted for. What do they call this? Ad hoc, unplanned for expenses that may come.
Right.
Right. Plus you have to deal with it. Right.
Yeah.
Like
Just the maintenance, upkeep kind of expenses.
Right,
And then of course, someone's pointing out here in the live stream chat is like, they're always going to tell you, and there's some tax advantages. If you sell the house today, you qualify for this tax advantage, and there are like numerous versions of it.
Right.
So
now, what they don't consider is that, if you do, I mean, it's its own kind of gamble, just like investing, right? Like, if you keep the house and you rent it out and nothing much happens, chances are very high that you're going to make a fair amount of money, right? Like it's going to be like I would almost call it like it's not completely illiquid, but it's sort of like ice. Like it's a frozen solid liquid. Like you can't really get rid of it quickly. I mean, you could, but that would be terrible. Like you could call up one of those people with the signs that like, we pay cash for houses and there's a caveman on it. Right.
So there's a transaction cost. It's harder to sell, right? Not like liquid.
And so it's kind of a liquid, but over the course of several decades, if that's how long you're going to hold on to it, then it's kind of good. And then in fact, this is the thing that I didn't even go over the first case, did I? I should go back to that. That's the worst one. But this gets into, I think, the second case, which is, well, all of that is true, but what's also true is that I should diversify my my net worth portfolio, right? So I got all this index stuff. I got some cash, so I can survive for 6 to 12 months if things go terrible. Blah blah blah. I got the 526 W9C for the kids or whatever. I'm maxing out my 401ks with the match. But maybe also what I need to do is like, what if money no longer matters?
Right.
And
diversification, right? You're making the whole diversification argument. Yeah.
Right. And so instead I actually have, let's assume money no longer matters. However, the legal system still exists. And so therefore this dirt that I own with the house, I own that, and it can be defended, right?
Right.
And also there's a house on it. So like,
it has utility. You can live in it. Yeah.
Right. I will always have a thing. And so that is like, maybe that's like a worst case scenario. Now you could say like, if it turns out money doesn't mean anything, the legal system's probably going to fall too. And so just like, whatever,
Right. And you should also make the liquidity argument in favor of the house. And, it's like, yeah, it's hard to sell, but the good thing is that can be bad, but it can also be good, because that way you won't react and be like, oh, the market's down, I'm going to liquidate everything. You can't really sell a house day to day. You just kind of forget about it. And you're like, oh, that's right. So that way it makes it easy to survive like bad downturns. So
but then you always have the thing, right? So that's the thing. Yeah. It's just a different type of asset that I don't think, and rightly so, right? Like if you're starting from zero, from nothing, like I think a financial advisor is going to be like, yes, you should deal in like cash and like more liquid things. Not cash, but like, things that are investments that you pay for instead of like owning 3-dimensional objects. Like that's not cool, right? Like they probably would also tell you should not buy Van Gogh, right? They'd probably be like, I don't know. That doesn't really. Why don't you buy an ETF that is for
More
Rembrandts?
ETF, less Van Gogh.
Yeah. Like if you really want to be into art, you can buy one of those things. And so, I think that's and then the of course there's like the variable. That's the word I was looking for. Variable. You got your variable expenses, like all of that stuff. But so I think those. So I think that's kind of like the real estate angle and the financial analyst angle,
Okay.
right? And then I think there's another angle, which is the bad one, which is just the sentimental angle, which I'm always weary of falling into. It's just like I don't want it.
Yeah, I love the house. It was where our kids lived. Whatever. We have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
keep it,
and
right?
like one day I'm we're gonna definitely move. We need to hold on to it, and like so that whatever. So that's not really like the best way of analyzing it. Now, if you throw in the other factor of like if you're in a crazy real estate market like Austin, right? Then I think this is where the financial analyst kind of falls down, is they don't really account for like, oh, right. But I mean, you have to make a spreadsheet at some point in your mind, an actual spreadsheet that basically calculates all this stuff out, right? Like I was trying to figure out like, so let's just say in theory, we have to spend let me do it in just like easy dollars. Let's say you own a house that's worth $100, right? And then in order to at some point you have to spend $10 to fix it up, right? And you're like, I got to spend the $10. But then if you hold on to the house for 10 more years and then the house is worth $200, then it's fine. Maybe. But then you got to put in your spreadsheet all the, 25 cents for taxes every year. And then, you got to replace the air conditioning. So there's some spreadsheet you can make. And then you can kind of, I would never get to the point where I'm doing like in PV and all that kind of
You
crap.
got net present value, then you get, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You can do the
throw
whole,
some,
Mhm.
you can throw some inflation in, and like the spreadsheet in my mind, right? It's saying that like, if you hold on to this thing for like 10 years, easy, no problem, right? Like, especially like as in, I think not I think in my case, like we don't have a mortgage, right? So there's no like, it's all paid off. So at that point, it's just sort of like I'm collecting dividends, basically. It's a high dividend stock that I'm just getting out. Now the company may falter, like something crazy might happen. I might have to go to a shareholder meeting, like, and figure that out. But pretty much I'm
But
probably
then,
just getting
what you just
dividends.
said there's a whole nother tab in our spreadsheet, right? Because you just kind of quickly slipped into private equity world. Whereas the financial analyst would be like, whoa, wait a minute. You got no mortgage on this. We gotta put a mortgage on this, take it out. And then they'd come back and be like, then you can depreciate that and we can put the money in this other higher. So that's like a whole private, like there's like a whole other conversation you have there. Like, yeah, you want to get a financial analyst going, tell them you paid off a mortgage. Because there's nothing like that's like red meat to like any type of financial advisor. If you somehow say, be like, I have an asset that is easily to get debt on and I have no debt on it, they're like, whoa, hold your horses there, sir. We need to lever you up. And you're like, but I don't know. I don't want it. They're like, let me show you the math. Let me, and you're like, but I don't like
this. This is a whole angle. I think you're right. This is a whole other sheet. This is model 2.
Yeah, this model 2.
I don't think I've considered.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
is now in model 2. Okay, so it's not a primary residency, which I in Texas just means that your property taxes
are lower,
can only go up 10% a year, but they can go up, right?
Yep.
Whereas since it's not a primary residency, we pay like all of the property taxes first year in the increase. So, but I think I like what you're saying here, Brandon, because not only can you, as you say, get leverage, that is, get a loan. You could get an equity loan on your house, which then you have to pay, but this might have exciting tax implications, right? Like if I take on a debt, which is actually kind of a credit to me at some point, in some weird way.
Welcome to depreciation, my good friend. You got like a whole,
Yes.
and then your accountant gets excited. Now suddenly the accountant and the financial analyst is
and
excited.
Now hold on.
It's like,
I'm gonna throw sheet 3 on here, which is also includes living in the Netherlands.
Oh,
how does that affect your taxes, right? Like if I, since there's a net worth tax here, not what do you call a wealth tax, like they tax you above a certain level, you get taxed on your total net worth. Like if I leverage, does that debt become a debt that lowers
that's a
my
whole
net worth?
We need our accountant professionals to help us
but then okay, so I think it might zero out, because if I got that loan in cash and then I put that in an index fund, that becomes an asset that I have, right? but then I also have the debt. So maybe it's just cancels out and I make like 2%. Like, is that what
I don't
we're
know,
gonna
but
get
this
to?
is the whole, like, you'd have to get into like the details of like what's an asset, what's a liability, and how are they accounted for in the Netherlands, which is going to take like a whole nother accounting staff. I think that's going to take the Netherlands version talking to the American version of the accountants, because they're probably as smart rich people. I bet you have figured this out to be like, oh, if you take the money out here, it's a liability, but if you take it out over here, it's an asset.
So what I hear you saying is there's another row in the spreadsheet that is investment staff fees.
Yes.
So maybe what I do is I use this first asset I get, that the first loan that I get, I just totally set up a small private equity firm.
Right.
Like all that money is just to employ some staff.
Yes.
And the pitch that I give to the staff is I come in and I'm like, all right, check this out. I own this thing. Your job is to have a job in a year. That's all you got to do. Like, here's the money. And if you want to keep having this job, figure it out. Yeah. Otherwise, you're out of a job.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Huh. Okay.
All right. Well, I think all I can say about this entire subject is the baby is not happy about hearing about it.
Yeah. She.
That's good. As I can see,
this is what happens when we record early.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's good. This is a good, like, I could tell well, I don't know. For the streamers, maybe you could tell. I guess we do know for the streamers that you did ultimately decide to go with the real estate perspective on this, right? You're keeping.
No, I mean, that's the other thing that I got too is typically the real estate agent wants you to, not in a conniving way, they want you to transact, but like, especially if you're an investment real estate person, you're like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point, is to find the perfect point to sell, not to hold, right? Like, because like you're always going to be like, you've always got the chance to like sell more.
This does seem like one of the things that I feel like should be figured out. Like, this is like a physics problem where it's like, no, there should just be one answer, right? Like, we shouldn't, I don't know, like not everybody should have to like, I feel like it's almost like DevOps. Like you want some kind of CI/CD thing that's figured this out for you. Like, oh, this is what you do. Don't, wow, man, she's on. What is she saying something?
I think like, I can.
Depreciation bad? Like what? Like I can't quite make it out. Well, I talk you. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what that means.
How about we do the rest of the video like this?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Hey,
let me get the baby out of here.
While Cote is dealing with the baby, I want to remind everyone, to go see our good friends at Teleport and sign up so you can secure all of the access to all of your important devices out there. And of course, I would prefer, and I would really be grateful if you told them your friends at Software Defined Talk sent you. And now we have a special guest joining us. Any thoughts on Teleport, baby? No, silence. They're a good sponsor, right? Isn't that what we were supposed to say? Can you say Teleport? I don't know. Is that a...
Can you say Teleport? Here what sound does a duck make?
Fair enough. That's as close as we're gonna get. Right. So Teleport, duck. It's all the same.
I'll be right back.
All right. All right. Here's the link to our friends at Teleport. Lacote's putting the baby down. Clearly, the baby likes ducks. Baby does not like podcasting, unfortunately. But hopefully she'll get to find a duck. He likes ducks. Could be a possible title. No. Only the few of you who are watching the stream will understand that.
How are my levels? Did she mess with the gain knob?
I think your levels are good. Hey, let's say, does everyone watching the stream, does it sound okay? Now that, again, not before with the baby, now without the baby, does it sound reasonable?
She's got to learn to talk at some point. Then she can just be like, hey.
Was I can't even remember. Is she a year old now?
She's 2.5.
2.5. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's what I would call it.
It's like
Close enough.
No, she's a lot older than that. It's like, okay, all right.
You know, at this age, she's 150% older than that. Or is that 250? Yeah, she's 250% older. That's
Has she gone to like any type of like Dutch daycare? Like, I'm just interested in the language side. Is she been around? I was gonna say, so English. She's sort of being, she's around you guys, so English
That's
is
right.
gonna be her first language.
So,
yeah, that's cool. All right,
pretty
all right.
Cool. Look, I moved the camera closer. Is that good?
I think it's good. I like it. I don't know. I'm always like, I never feel like I have the right camera angle, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, you ready? We ready to roll? Ready to continue on?
Yep.
Okay. What time is it here? Okay. All right. Let's roll. Whatever.
How long do you
hold on, wait, before we get that. Okay, we got the ad going. So I don't know, I got probably another 40 minutes. How long do you have?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, okay. I don't know, whatever.
We just roll straight through now. So no more stopping.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was an analysis out, and you know, there's some IDC forecasts, some market share forecasts for public cloud. And I know, you know, we make the same joke every time we cover this, but it looks like the top 3 public cloud providers get most all the money. They are not only, they're the top 3 by a long shot. I forget the percentage, but I feel it was like 60, 70, maybe even more percent of all the money in public cloud. They get it, and they have like, I feel like at least 20% year over year growth. They're just doing gangbusters on that business. And you know, also related, I think there was some I forget if it was in the quarterly call or something, but it looks like FedEx, you know, the people who deliver packages, they're targeting moving all of their stuff out of date, closing all their data centers. They're going to move it not only to public cloud, but also it looked like some managed service stuff just out of their own data centers by 2024, which, you know, I don't know if you're like me, Brandon, and listeners, but like that seems a far time into the future. But then I did the math, and that's basically a year and a half from now. So
right.
now there was a quote that I forget what the exact quote was, but that they've been working on this for like a you know, for it. It was worded very oddly. I had to read it twice. We've been working on this in the current decade, which I guess means they've been working on it for a couple of years now, or something like that.
So they said, we've been working across this decade to simplify and stream. That's interesting. So like, I guess this decade means the previous 10 years. That is a very like strangely worded.
No, I thought this decade meant in the current
2020s?
decade, which would be the 2020s, right? So that means that in 2020 they had their offsite, maybe what, you know, what's the fancy in Scottsdale? I don't know where they go. They went to some place. Maybe they went somewhere else. You know, they had their executive meetings, and you know, they decided we're gonna by 2024 we need to move everything, close all our data centers, right? So they started kicking that off then. Maybe, I'm guessing, if it's in this decade, and then they're going to be done in 2024. Which,
this is a good little nugget, though. The fact that they have quote unquote estimated $400 million of annual spend. So that's like, I think for all of us that work in cloud, this is like a million PowerPoint presentations are being updated with this quote, right? Going completely cloud native will save it $400 million a year, which obviously it's a very self-serving stat for anyone that's promoting cloud adoption. But that does seem like we would want to know more. We would like to see the spreadsheet. I'd like to see everyone show the work on that. It seems very high, but go on.
Yeah. And so I think, I think, you know, I assume that the end of 2024, as always, is December 31st at 11:59 p.m. of 2024, right? So you got that whole year to go through. And I don't know. I mean, it seems ambitious, but like, I guess it's probably possible.
But don't you think? I think we talk a lot about this. Like, this is, to me, like, this is kind of the way to galvanize a company and to do it. Like, if you're gonna say, "Hey, we want to," if we believe it's important to move to the cloud, is that, like, you know, I don't know how they came up with the 400 million, but I just assume that they've done some math and they figured that out. In like, maybe it's not exactly right, but they feel like there are significant cost savings ahead. And two, it's like, if you're going to do it, if you're going to like, hey, we want to do it, having a leader at the top, in this case, it's someone speaking at, I guess it's CIO Rob Carter, who actually spoke at an investor day with Wall Street and saying like, this is an important priority for the company. Here's why we're doing it. And here's where we're going to complete it. It's like, that does provide an incredible amount of clarity for a corporation, right? And like, we're doing it versus lots of like, well, we're not sure. Like, yeah, maybe the CIO wants to do this, or we have a lot of different vendors in here talking about it, but we still want to keep our private data centers, and this application isn't going to move. Like, that's where I think people really start to get bogged down. So I like this idea of like, hey, it's kind of reminiscent of like either the Netflix or AWS or, you know, Capital One, where it's like, no, this is a pillar of our strategy and we're going to get it done. And so like, I think will they get it done exactly by 2024? And will it exactly save 400 million? Not totally sure about that. Will they get it done by 2026 and have some cost savings? Probably will happen, right? Because they have this kind of leadership at the top.
I think you're right. It is this is always and maybe this will segue into our second topic, which is, you know, Bad Bosses Chapter 3 and how to think about your summer vacation. But like there is some, at some point when you're setting vision, and I like how OKRs bake this in, are very self-conscious of it in OKRs. You basically set a vision that is completely unrealistic because, you know, you have to, what would you describe it? You know, when you're making estimates, they call it padding your estimates, right? Like when you know that, you know, you want to say something's going to take 6 weeks if you think it will take 4 weeks. Because, you know, you always want to, like, it's weird to say it in this thing, you want to underpromise and overdeliver. Or if you're lazy like me, you want to underpromise and underdeliver, right? Like, just do it correctly there.
Right.
And deliver on what's promised. There you go. But so it seems like, you know, you set, and, you know, apart from FedEx or whatever, right? I don't know what's going on over there. But like, it does seem like that is a good thing to throw out there, is to like be like, oh yeah, we're totally serious that we're going to do it. And then, as you're saying, you know, probably maybe it would all move. And even if it doesn't all move, enough will have moved to have made it a good idea, right? Like, at least, because I feel like moving your stuff to cloud, like your IT modernization, more or less, whatever effort you put in is probably going to be good. Now, if you put in an effort and you end up never shipping it, then I guess that's bad. But like, as long as you're like doing something where you're trying to like move forward, you're probably going to be okay, as opposed to like doing nothing, right? And I think the other consideration of like if I could, knowing a little bit about their business, right? So one, I mean, FedEx is global, right? Which is kind of a little easy to sort of forget, but like, I think the other part that's hard to forget about that is easy to forget is like their footprint globally of like IT stuff is pretty significant, right? Because they have to be like everywhere. So I'm sure they have lots of edge computing or whatever going on. And they also, like, I don't know how many companies they've acquired, but they acquired, I think they're the ones who acquired TNT, which is like the Europe FedEx. And so like that was quote unquote only like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe like, you know, like 5 years ago. And so like chances are high, like if it's like other companies, right, that they haven't fully integrated that IT into their portfolio.
Right.
So part of your spreadsheet is like, well, if we, and this is the same for any gigantic company, right? Part of the spreadsheet has to be, if we do consolidation of all the acquired companies, we get some benefit there, right? But I don't know. I mean, that's all a bunch of footnotes to like, I mean, you always have to be careful. What idiom? There's idioms like burning the boats, sink or swim. There must be some nice one, right? What are idioms that they would use for like immersion therapy? Like when you're using a language, when you're learning a language, and they do like the full immersion language, they don't call that burning the boats or sink or swim. They're just like, yeah, you just pretend like you're doing it. You just push yourself
Well,
into
what's
it.
the one, like someone said, like throw the hat over the fence, over the wall? It's sort of like, you know,
Whoa,
committing yourself to like, okay, well, now we have to get over that wall. So that's sort of like a very benign way of saying it. There's no although I guess burn the boats is sort of, well, I guess that does kind of, I don't know. I guess it depends if you, who you were. If you're like, I want the option to go back, versus like, well, hey, we've set the goal. And I do like the fact that, you know, the other thing in this headline is it says FedEx signals, quote, zero mainframe, zero data center. So again, back to being really, really clear, right? Back to being around. It's like, no, we're getting everything off the mainframe, because there is, like, you talk about this a lot, Cote. It's like, if you're not super clear like this, there's going to be every group is going to come up with an exception. They're like, oh, we can't do it. Like, we're the mainframe group and we have this application that can't be done, right? Or this, like, we have this data center. So, like, I'm sure, and I bet you there are, like, at the micro level of this project, I bet you there are lots of reasons that, like, getting off the mainframe is going to be more work than it necessarily should be, and maybe be more costly. But, like, if you will, the overall global strategy is sort of going to pay off to cover up, like, the places where it's like, yeah, actually, it didn't make a ton of sense to move that app, but the fact that we got everything off of it is actually going to give us the cost savings. I think that's the other part of, like, kind of like selling this kind of thing, is just to kind of acknowledge that, like, yeah, like, if we were to look app by app, some of them probably should stay where they are, but that's just going to be too complicated. It's kind of back to our conversation you were talking about, like, financial analysts and stuff like that. Like, sure, every little transaction could be optimized, but really, if we think about the whole thing, we optimize by being consistent. So I like this: zero mainframe, zero data center.
Yeah.
Like, everyone can decide you're either in or you're out on that vision, and it's very simple to repeat.
Like I was thinking, let's see if this train of thought works out. Like, I was like, so it starts with this, is like, I mean, it's hard to modernize that application, mainframe, whatever, and it can't be done. But, like, if it hurts today, it's probably going to hurt tomorrow and the next day as well, right? Like, you're not going to like you're still going to not like it. So I was, we had some guests over here, and you try to spruce things up, like go through some cleaning cycles, and we finally we had this cover that covers up the wire that goes up to our TV hanging on the wall, and we had one of those those wire covers that makes it look a little better,
right?
And of course, it's from IKEA, so the sticky stuff on the back wasn't working. And so, like, that, it was like that for a month, and then one day, Kim, my wife, was like, you should put some of that double-sided 3M stuff on there. And so then another week passed, and then I went and bought some, and they've got a funny name for it in Dutch. I forget what it is, but, like, I went and got some, and I cut off like I don't know, a 1/4 inch strip, which is, I think that's, what is that, 2 centimeters? I don't really know. And I untaped it and I put it up in the corner, and now it's fixed. And it's sort of like, maybe I should have just done that a while. And then we have the phone that goes down to the door where you let people in, and that, I knocked into that at one point and kind of knocked it off the wall, but you can still kind of get it up there, but it falls down. So we took the sticky tape and we put it on there, and now that's fixed. And it's sort of like, maybe we should just, like, every day, or maybe once a week, just go around and, like, do like a 20-minute fix. And I feel like modernization apps are like that too. They're like, ooh, we only have 20 minutes this week to spend on something. Is this really the highest priority thing you want to spend it on? And you want to be like, yeah. Right? Like next week is, I'm pretty sure I know when next week is going to come. It's right here in the calendar. So let's just do this now, right? Like, it'll be cool, right? And
well, I think the mainframe seems to, like, have this, occupies, to me, almost like a special spot for these kind of conversations, right? And I think what you're getting at there is, like to me, the idea is either zero mainframe and we're going to do the work to get off it, or no, we're committing to the mainframe as a long-term platform because we think it provides a lot of value and there's a lot of reasons why. And we're going to commit to, like, training, hiring, and, keeping, like, we're not going to treat it like, oh, like, we're surprised every time that there's an issue with the mainframe and there aren't new people necessarily learning about the mainframe in college. Like, you're going to address that. You're going to be like, no, we know we need to do that. We're going to have some, if you will, internal training. We're going to be bringing people up. We're going to compensate them in a way to make sure that it's in line with their careers. And it's like you don't ever hear that, right? I don't feel like you hear people say it's like we're going to be committed to it because we think this is an important platform. It's always like, oh, it's always like, it's like, almost to your point, it's like the cord that you walk by every day that's sort of like sticking out of your TV. It's like every time you see it, oh, I'm surprised that's still not, it's like, no, like, that's like, I'm not surprised anymore that it's fixed. Like, I'm committed to that. I'm fine with it, right? It provides, like, the way it works is the way I want it, and I'm not going to pretend every time. There's like, you just don't hear that. And there, like I said, there's lots of reasons, I think, to stay on the mainframe, right? Where you're just like, this application, like ACH is one we, like, kind of make fun of all the time. But it's like, yeah, if I was in charge of the ACH infrastructure, I'd be like, I have an entire training program to bring in new people, teach them how to code this up on the mainframe, and teach them how to use it and provide them a solid career path. And I know those people are going to leave for other jobs, but I'm going to have a pipeline coming in because this is the way I want to do it. And this is the way the United States moves money, and we're moving on. Right. It's like, that would be just a valid answer to me, as it is like, we're going to like build it in containers and move it on Kubernetes. It's like, okay, you know, I mean, like, just don't be surprised every time. Like, oh, the mainframe, like oh, well, no one saw this coming. Everybody saw this coming.
I like you have this is like some contemporary, like if mainframe therapy, right? And that is like, you do the I forget the name for this, where you I hate this, like rhetorical trick where I make fun of this all the time, where you take it back and recontextualize the context,
right,
and the stuff, and just like, I've read books, I know what you're doing, right? Like, don't use your Jedi mind tricks on me.
right.
But anyways, to do that, like, I like the position you have, because it's like, it's not a question of a spreadsheet, it's a question of what you want. And are you committed to the mainframe lifestyle? Is that what you want? Right. And I'm not saying that in a, is this what you want sort of way. It's like, that's a choice, right? It's kind of like, hey, you could commit to the eating red beef and potato chips lifestyle, totally fine, but just go all in. Or you could commit to the vegan lifestyle. It's like, it's not about like, at some point, and this is the therapist part, right? At some point, the therapist is going to be like, you can't live your life by risk benefit analysis, because that's not going to be sustainable. What you have to do is live your life by your intrinsic motivation, by what you want and what your identity is. So if you want to keep using a mainframe, you can't only justify it that it is necessary and that it's the most cost-effective thing and it's too difficult to move from it. You have to also justify it because that's who you are and what you want to do. And similarly, the same goes for whatever we call distributed now, right? It's just, at some point you've got to be like, yeah, is that what you want? Right? Like, because walk through that. And so I think that's sort of like, when it comes to modernization, that's the thing you can't put in a spreadsheet, that I think you need to sort of contend with at some point. And I think, you know, what you see with big proclamations like this is, I think that has to be, hopefully that's another part of the vision. The IT vision is like, yeah, you know, and this would be the conversation that you have with your IBM and your other sales reps who are in the mainframe area, and just be like, hey, everything you're saying sounds great. I totally don't disagree. It's not you, it's me. We're not committed to the mainframe lifestyle. We're just moving on, right? Like, that's what we're going to do. We can pay some breakup fees, whatever it is. You know, we might have to do this. We might have to get it off of our books by outsourcing it to someone as a service. And so therefore we don't have it. We just benefit from it. But like, that's just not the lifestyle we want anymore. So, you know,
I think, you know, an interesting article that came out a few weeks ago was talking about the IRS, so the United States Internal Revenue Service, which basically, you know, people collect taxes, and that it came out that, you know, essentially they're using something like 30-year-old technology. Right. And, you know, and this is the classic.
That's much newer than the last time I read that. But
yeah, I don't even know. Maybe it's 50 years, like whatever it is. And so, you know, but basically it's a lot of like really old, I think, COBOL and, you know, mainframe kind of stuff. And it's like, so you kind of come back to this one, because I think it's like maybe the biggest potential modernization project that, like, at least I know of. I'm sure there's maybe something out there, but it's like, it is sort of like if someone called you in and like, what would you do here? And it's like, think about the tax code is so incredibly complicated. And like, think about like all of the kind of logic that has been implemented in there to work. And it's like, you know, it is maybe to the point where it's like, yeah, the IRS should just be committed to like, we're not changing this platform. We are going to keep it the way it is. And we're going to train people on what is essentially, you know, a proprietary programming language at this point, and and just say to ourselves, like, yeah. I mean, because we collect all the tax revenue in the United States, like, it's more than justifiable for us to just kind of have a really, really custom system, right? Because I think the person that walks in there is like, oh, you should rewrite this on Node and run it in, you know, and it's like, you know, I mean, we're talking like a lifespan of a project that's like, you know, going to be like 100+ years. And so I don't know, kind of like, to me, it is kind of that ultimate question around, like, sometimes maybe that's okay, right? It's just to be committed to it. Or, you know, like, we, at least I'll speak for all the United States citizens, like, or we as a group of citizens have to be like, you know, we actually think it would be a lot more beneficial if it was modernized. And like maybe the benefit to all of us would be, hey, everyone at the end of the year, you'll get a completed tax return that you can just sign and send back. Like, and you don't have to do anything, right? It's like, so maybe like what's that's worth to the entire American public, right? It's like, would people be in favor of that, or would lobbyists come out and say, oh, that's wrong? Like, because it is a funny system, right? Like you kind of have to compile in all the income that you know about, but then the IRS also gets a list of the income, and it's like, did you like miss a form? Like, if you make a mistake, it's just like, but they have all the answers, right? They sort of like have the answers to the problem. And so like what would it be worth? And like maybe that's where we should go. But like if you collectively voted in the United States, like I think, I don't know, it sounds like it would just become like some type of partisan chaos, but that would be kind of the benefit. Otherwise, you just tell people, it's like, well, we're just going to keep it the way it is then. And,
well, I think there's two things that are good metaphors for application modernization at large global organizations. And that is one, they're probably, I mean, there must be other ones, but there are probably like less than a handful, less than 5 other organizations in the world that have a more difficult environment for multi-year budgeting and projects than the IRS. Like they
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
like I'm pretty sure, not pretty sure, but I bet you could like schedule out a 5-year budget and then just like you'd be like, I don't know, we'll see what happens next year. This might just disappear, right? And so like
Yeah.
and it's got to be crazy, right? And then laws can change and you have to rewrite things, so it's got to be a very difficult environment to do any long-term planning in. And then two, I think it's a good example of what we were talking about before. Is if you were, this is kind of like almost an Iglesian type of like recontextualization, which is like, well, I guess it goes, actually it's more of like, it's based on an old Franklin idiom, an old Benjamin Franklin idiom, which is like the voters get the government they deserve, right? Which that's a cynical way of putting it, but the Iglesian rewriting is that like, well, you may not realize it, but this is the policy you want. Like, if you don't want this policy, you can decide not to have that policy, right? Like, you can just change it. And so, like, if you were to sort of like present what you're just saying to the American people, right? You'd be like, because basically, technologically, I think a lot of what you're saying is we need to centralize things more, right? Like, we need to be able to, like, you can do some OAuth stuff to your bank and all of your financial institutions, and the IRS will just go like suck down that information, and then we'll use, like, I don't know, some machine learning in the cloud, and then within 24 hours we'll say like, here's the money you owe us, right?
Yep.
And if you just hook up to all that stuff, and if you were to present that to the aggregate of the American people, I think they would very quickly express a core value, that is the lifestyle that they want. Analogous to like, do you want the mainframe lifestyle? They would say, the user would say, no, technologically that sounds awesome, but that violates the number one thing that we want, which is we don't want a strong central government, right? Like, and I think that's sort of like a fundamental thing that the user wants there, is they want a very weak central government. And so once your taxing authority can do, like, I mean, I don't know what they do in the Netherlands, but there's one central ID. But like, once you get to the point where the IRS is basically like mint.com and they just present you a bill, I think that violates like a huge American ethos, and therefore you just can't modernize.
So I think what you're getting at there is like, that's exactly
so the Americans want to live the COBOL lifestyle when it comes to their taxes.
Yeah, I guess the part I think is just really interesting there, because I think this is always like interesting to me just in general about like, how much time do you spend trying to explain things to everyone? Because it's like, because I think what you're saying there is exactly how it would be portrayed in like certainly popular media. But if we just like dove in a little bit more and we just said, well, listen, the IRS actually has all of the information, because and it's all sent to them by the employers and people, because that's the way the laws work. So they have all of that. And the reason that they know that that you may be likely to be audited is they looked at like what you sent in. They look at your submitted homework and they compared it to like the answer key, and they're like, there's significant variance here. It's like, Cote said he made $10,000. I'm showing this thing from VMware that says he made a lot more money than that, right? And so and so you kind of go back to American people. It's like, well, they have all of this stuff. They're just checking. So it's like this idea that like, you believe the taxing authority is weak is actually wrong. They're actually just double checking everything to you. Even though it seems like you did all this work and they have no idea what's going on, they actually have all the answers. So it's like,
it gets even more Kafkaesque or
yeah. Would you like, so it's kind of back to like, the American people is like, would you like to just see the answer key before you submit your response? Or would you prefer to actually do all the hard work? And it's like, you're right. But I think as an American ideal, I definitely think it's likely that people would prefer to do the work themselves. So, we'll see. Well, and again, I think the IRS, I think, hopefully one day there'll be a Harvard business like case study of this, like what actually did happen. Like, when does it actually get modernized? Should it get modernized in the future? It'll just be interesting to see if anything happens to it, or if our children are dealing with the same tax system in the next 30 years.
Yeah. I think I think it'll still be the same one. I think that's a hallmark of the American system is that it takes a long time to change anything.
Amen.
It's I mean it's not to raise up any recent stuff, which is depressing and weird, but as a case from like a realm of thought that I would rather not draw an analogy or a case from, like there's current, like all the stuff going on in the States now is a good case study in modernization takes, I don't know, 30, 40 years. Like it takes a long time, and you got to have a long game to like modernize the American system. In this case for worse, but sometimes for better. Anyhow, well, I think somewhat, speaking of strategies, and think,
Hold on, you can do it like,
yeah.
just do the when you're ready, do the like, and
here, just take a time code and let me deal with this.
no problem. Go ahead.
Okay.
Baby wants to be on camera.
Let's put this up, okay? And then put that up. How about, I'll tell you what. Do you want to take this? This is fun. Take this. Yeah, that's a good fun thing for a baby. Yes. Oh, you meant the baby.
All right.
Man, this is like life. No time is good. That's I stayed at the Algonquin Hotel, which apparently I'm enough of an English major nerd that I'm the only one who knows that was like a major like intellectual like hangout spot in the 30s and 40s in New York, which is fine. And like all the New Yorker people used to go there, and there was a great New Yorker cartoon where this guy's standing at a desk and he's like, "Oh no, I can't make the meeting on Thursday. How about never? Is never good for you?" And I just thought, like, that's, yep.
Too funny. All right, yeah, we'll do one more topic, then we can get out of here.
All right.
The baby episode.
So speaking of strategizing in the corporate world, it's as of our recording time, it's July 7th, 2022. I guess the earliest people will hear this will be July 8th. I think does it come out at midnight Central Time, or
12:30 a.m. Central?
12:30. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Good. Just brief side note. I think I know what the answer is going to be, but do you find, whenever you think about is midnight AM or PM and is noon AM or PM, is it confusing to you, or do you just?
Yeah, it always feels like it should be it feels like it should be opposite of what it is, even though I'm not proposing that. Yes, but I do have that.
And now I think this is highly related. I feel like, one of my life projects is figuring out what's up with numbers and math in my mind, right? And things. And I feel like we had a discussion last week. Is Sunday the start of the week or not the start of the week, right? And how do you think about it, right? Like where does that fall? And I think similarly, noon. Now midnight, I feel like I'm solid that midnight is the new day, right? I'm cool with that. Maybe because like it's ingrained in us every year on an exact time and date that once it is midnight on New Year's, which actually, well, once it's January 1st, so once it is 12, see, I'm messing it up right now. Once it's 12 a.m.
January 1st, yeah.
I keep using the word midnight because midnight is a whole other thing. Once it is midnight on January 1st, which is actually an inaccurate phrase, but never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's midnight, then you know that it's a new day, right? So you know that midnight is a new day if you are awake a minute before, right? Like, so you know that turnover happens. But I feel like, to me, the PM doesn't happen until 1, right? So like the 12 o'clock hour is the strange, confusing hour. Like, I feel like that's still an AM, but it's not an AM. I mean, 1 p.m. is definitely not 1 a.m.
But isn't this just a backdoor argument to be like, we should be on 24-hour time? Because isn't that Europe, mostly Europe, it generates that. Like my son sort of like,
I'm not into it.
My son's sort of, interested in time and stuff like that. But like we were talking the other day, it's like, yeah, like military time, 20, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's like, I do think this is one of those things, like we do have a solution. Much of the world has already adopted it. It is like, 24-hour time would be the best. Because then you kind of know, like hour 1 is the beginning and hour 23 is the end.
I think, I mean, that is the correct answer. However, this is yet again another data point of why I'm a liberal arts person and not a engineering person. Because I feel like if we solve this problem, what would we have to talk about? Like,
well, it's kind of like the taxes, right? It's like we have the answer, no one really wants it, so we'll just keep doing it the hard way. Fine, fine by us.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, poetry is just obfuscating for fun, right? Is like what you're doing with that. So, and yet that's considered a fantastic art form. Anyways, it's the summer months, and I think so there's going to be a lot of vacation going on, right? And here in the tech world, as we all are, many of our listeners, I think one has to start considering what your vacation taking ethics is and how you sort it out, right? Now, this used to be relatively easy in the pre Netflix culture deck days before that, because what you had is you would just have a fixed amount of vacation that you had, and that was it. You had this pool you could pull from. Like, I think people joke, but if you're a young American, you might have like 2 weeks of self-choice driven vacation. This is not including the holidays that you're given.
Right.
And then if you're probably, by the time you'd be our age, if you're more senior, you've got like, I don't know, you could take a month off, maybe, kind of.
Right. Like 3 to 4 weeks, depending on like how long you've been in the company. Sure.
Right. And like if you take it in July, you get the 4th off, whatever. Like you can sort things out. However, post Netflix culture deck, many people have this infinite vacation thing, right? And if you don't have infinite vacation, then you have like squishy vacation, where it's sort of like, especially with the pandemic, it's like, do what you need to, right? Like take the time off, do what's required. And so I think this is maybe the first summer post pandemic where there's kind of sort of not an excuse for squishy, like taking a lot of time off, right? And so it's time to revisit, how do you do the spreadsheet in your mind of how much vacation should I take off if there is no set limit, or if it's squishy. And I feel like, you and I were talking about this a little bit before. I feel like this is an incredibly unsolved problem. And just as a little bit of a spoiler, maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't. I feel like what this does is it puts all of the responsibility and risk on the employee, and the employer almost carries no risk. Like, it's definitely good for them, and they don't kind of like shoulder any of the cognitive load, if you will, of dealing with this.
And just to bring this home, I think there's this thing about Mark Zuckerberg basically talking about, what's going on in his company. But like, I think we just send her in because I think it's a good example of like the cognitive workload that's on the employee. So like Zuckerberg was giving some all hands, and he said, quote, "Realistically, there are probably a bunch of people at the company who shouldn't be there." Okay. So let's just like, for a moment, let's just take it for what at face value. Okay. That's how Zuckerberg leading Facebook feels. So here we sit in July, and it's vacation time, right? And it's like, at least here in the United States, it's very popular. Summer, I guess I would say Northern Hemisphere, probably very popular in Europe and in North America to take vacations. And it's like, okay, so your leader has come out and said that, not said it to you. I mean, he said it to broad company, right? And it's like, are you more likely or less likely to like take vacation in the summer, right? Based on this kind of thing. And then two, like you're kind of like stuck kind of doing some type of, and I think this is what everyone kind of figures out is like, if I take vacation, will there be a penalty? Like, will there be some type of, silent penalty because I took a vacation? And I think most people say, well, most companies would say, of course not, right? But then it's like, well, like if you take an afternoon off, no one and very few companies are going to care. Certainly in the knowledge working community, it's just like, yeah, whatever, right? Now, if you take a week off, I think that's in United States, that's a very safe amount of time. I feel like people are like, oh, you're gone for a week. I'd say in Europe, much more common to take 2 weeks off. Like people feel pretty good about that. But I think in the United States, if you're gone for 2 weeks, people are like, oh, there'll just be a little bit of like, oh, 2 weeks, really? That must be great. And
exactly.
like, and you can read
great.
it,
yeah.
And like that last part is like, some people mean like it's great you left and had a great vacation. Other people meant it's like a little subtlety, especially if it's coming from someone in a executive or managerial role. Like even if they're not like directly, you don't report to them, and there's just a little bit of a like, oh, 2 weeks. And so you kind of have this low level, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that. Like maybe 10 days. I should take the week and the weekend and a Monday off. But like, if I go beyond that, and I think this is like a real dilemma, because I think what gets underlying this is kind of back to the Zuckerberg quote. It's like, I have no idea what's going on Facebook. So I should put that out there and just say, it's like, maybe he's right, but it's just like, how do you know? Like, if you're just hearing that, like, and you're sitting there and you're like, is he talking about me? Is Zuckerberg speaking to me? Am I something, the kind of person he doesn't believe that should be here? And like, how would I know that? How could I discern that? I can just kind of do my own personal evaluation, but that can be very, difficult, right? At different times to be like, I think I'm doing a good job, and you may be doing a great job, or you could be thinking you're doing a great job, but you're actually working on a project nobody cares about and you're doing a bad job. Right. And it's like, it's not always clear to you, and I know people would say, well, you got a performance review. It's like, well, performance review doesn't always answer those questions. It gives you like a very like small answer to a question about like this past year, we think you did something good. It doesn't necessarily give you a real-time snapshot. And then again, that all goes back into like, should I take any vacation? So it does. I think to your point, it's like the cognitive load is really put back on the worker to figure out, to like try to compute all of these different things to figure out, can I go to the beach?
Well, now let me try to turn this to another angle here, which is, so I think the reason we obsess so much about like what our thrilling tech overlords say, like what comes out here, is because I don't know if people use this phrase anymore, but often what they do is, the younger ones at least, is they say, how does the phrase go? You said the quiet part out loud. Isn't there some phrase that's like, that you said what was in your mind quietly? You weren't supposed to say that out loud. I'll have to look up what that phrase is. And I think this is an instance where I think probably many managers across industries have the same thoughts, right? Like they just know not to say it, right? Like basically, like it's a bad idea to go in front of, let me just posit this. You should not go in front of your company and say, yeah, we don't really need some of you. And so we're going to like make your work hard so that you decide to leave. Enjoy the donuts, right? That's not really the best way to go about doing stuff. I mean, because there's so much wrapped in it. Now, however, I think like, when we look over these things that like weird tech bosses say, like, it's good to say like, okay, let's use them as inspiration for how we should be thinking about the transaction occurring here, right? Because obviously they are having a very transactional relationship with me, a human resource, right? They're looking at me as like a dynamo, like just a part of the machine that is either producing or not producing, and that it gets what it deserves, or I get rid of it, and I can pour more gas in it, and it can make more. But if it's like inoperable, I'm just going to get rid of it, no gas. So you have that kind of transactional thing, right? So you are seen, I think, as sort of just like a producer, as you know, you're helping the company make money. Now, that's kind of a cynical way to put it. It's not like I'm writing for Jacobin or whatever. But like, I mean, I think everyone would mostly agree with that's how a company works, especially in America, right? It would be like the goal of a company is to make as much money as possible with as little as possible, right? You want to maximize your profits. The way you maximize profits is you go to your customers, you get as much money as they're willing to pay for something, or I should, to phrase it more nuanced, you get as much money as you can get from them, right? So on the one end, your top line revenue, you want it to be as high as possible. You never go in and you never like, hey, we're selling ads. And I would, I could convince you to pay $50 for this ad, but listen, I kind of know this ad is only worth $5. So
Right.
like, really, you only have to pay five, right? Like, I mean, literally, if you use an auction, the point of an auction is to find out who the last sucker is that's going to pay more than the second person, right? So like, so you're maximizing the take. Now, no one would say that's unethical, really. I mean, you get in a situation where like, if there's a hurricane and someone like buys a bunch of ice and they go sell the ice for a huge markup, that seems unethical, but that has a good excuse to it, right? It's just, I mean, that's whatever. It's a bad idea to sell a life preserver to someone like, who fell off the Titanic. So you got that. The point of a corporation is to maximize profit. So how do you do that? You pay as little as possible in time and money and risk for how you're producing that. That is employees, right? So that is the position of the company. I don't think anyone would ever say that is unethical, right? Like they might have problems with it. The more left leaning you get, you would have problems. But if you sort of accept the corporate capitalist system, that's the whole point. Is like, I want as much money as possible for as little effort. That's the game. That's what's at the core of it. So for some reason, like you shift to the employee's perspective, and that is not the rubric that you follow. The employee's job is not to figure out what is the least amount of work that I can do to get the most amount of money, right? Like we're very much so, at least and I think this is most of the Western world, where it's sort of brought up with these almost sort of puritanical ethics. Maybe this is kind of a Northern European and an American thing, where like you feel that like I should not take advantage of my employer, right? Like it is ethical for me to like put in the appropriate amount of work for the money that they're giving me, which again, let me bring it back. That is not how companies work. A company
Right.
would never be like, yeah, I sold them $50 worth of ads, so I feel like I should give them $50 worth of ads. I mean, okay. I've got to like eat, so I'll give them $48 worth of ads,
Right.
right? Because really, like, I only need that $2 to buy me a sandwich today, right? But and so like maybe this is like the thing that I think when you're thinking about vacations is you need to be inspired by the companies that you work for and figure out how to maximize your take with the minimal amount of effort.
Right. So it's a version of maximize shareholder value, but on a personal level. You're trying to maximize your own personal earnings, just like a company would do. Like you're trying to reduce your
Right.
cost, and your cost is primarily time, right? The time you
I
put
mean,
into it. So if I
you've
could
got
spend less time and make more money, I'm going to do that, right?
I mean,
So
listen, you've got the kitchen table board you're gonna have to go back to. And the kitchen
that's
table
right.
board is gonna be like, I've looked through your balance sheet here and it's bullshit. I'm gonna
Yeah.
fire you. Right? Like we are looking to maximize kitchen table board shareholder value, and that
Hmm.
is not occurring. Right? Like the suppliers you're working with, otherwise known as your employer, are totally taking advantage of you. You need to like, let's look at the comps in the peer group that we're in. These comps are very poor, right? Like we don't have enough vacation. You're not here enough. These comps are terrible. I had the iBankers come in, do an analysis. You got to sort this out. You've got a year, or we're
Uh-huh.
basically going to take this private, and
That's right.
we're gonna build the valuation back up, spin it out, and I'm sorry, you're just going to be out.
And
Right?
you're
Like
done.
we might have a golden parachute. I don't really know. We'll have to look at the paperwork, but this performance this year is unacceptable.
Yeah.
You need to go sort this out.
I like it. I like all of it. But I do, kind of bringing it back to this Zuckerberg line. You kind of said it, like, I guess, saying the quiet part out loud. I do think it's kind of fascinating because sometimes I like when this happens, where it's like, I think if you polled most executives, I think a lot of them would if they knew they weren't going to be quoted, they would be like, yeah, Zuckerberg's right. There's a lot of people at the company that shouldn't be here. And I think that's just an interesting question to dive into. Like, why why does maybe it's true. Like, why does that happen? Right. So I guess you could say, like, why does the person in charge who does ultimately control the hiring process and who gets hired, why do they ultimately, what goes wrong in their mind that a bunch of people end up there that shouldn't be there? Or two, it's just sort of like, is it just a classic mismatch expectations? Like, the perspective of running a company and the way you're compensated and the way you think about it is just, it's just human nature to look at it completely different than being like a rank and file employee at a company. And that any of us who are put in that, if we were to switch places, if Zuckerberg were to switch places with like a mid-level engineer at Facebook, and and then that person being promoted, would they basically end in the same kind of feeling? Would they have the same kind of ideas, like just based on
Yeah.
the circumstance? Because that to me seems to be like a fundamental question just around business. Like, so many leaders ultimately feel this way. Either their expectations in the workforce are completely out of whack, and that should be addressed, or something else is going on there, right? Something else is like, that there's just a fundamental cultural problem that the CEO is unable to, they can't fix it, right? Even though they've tried to put in this hiring process, they still can't figure out how to hire people. And it just leads to a lot of, in their quote unquote, world, that a lot of people shouldn't be working there. And I think, I don't know, like, to me, it is, maybe it feels very American too. It feels like an American problem. I think most American executives would be more likely to say this than say like European executives. And I don't know. To me, it's a fascinating question, because I do think, like, I mean, I hear it more privately. Like, you get like, if you can have conversations with CEOs or stuff like that, there is always this like, people just don't care. They don't work hard enough here, and it's like, it's pretty common. I think it's probably one of the more common things that you see in business today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it becomes a vicious cycle because it's like, yeah, I mean, you just said why we don't care, right? Because we're disposable. So whatever. Like it's just
But it is.
uh,
I don't know, and I do think so. I wish somebody would just do follow up. I don't even care. Like, I'm not so interested in the Facebook side of it. Like, why, like, what's going on there, if they're doing bad or good. But like, it would be really interesting to, like, because I think Zuckerberg, for everything that we've read about him, intellectually, at least academically, very intelligent, right? So it's like, just everything about this. Did he, like, to your point, did he just say it off the cuff because he can say it? Did he say it? Did he specifically think to himself, this is a way I'm going to motivate people, and did he do it on purpose? And just, just like having a beer with him and like going into his mind, I think would be really, really telling. I hope someday someone does a podcast. We're always available if
yeah,
Zuckerberg
yeah.
wants to come on this podcast, but it'd be interesting
Yeah.
to have someone like just probe into just that mindset. And I think, the other one, our friends over at Ben Horowitz, right? Maybe he would be the one to do it, because he's like a hard thing about hard things kind of person. Like, what's his take on this? Like, it'd be interesting for him to be like, no, this is how you run a company really well. I'd be interested to hear like what he had to say on it too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean to close it out, the whatever, the well, it's not an elephant in the room, but like the thing to unmask is like, well, who hired all those people?
Yeah.
Right? Like someone was like basically misforecasted and mismanaged the finances of the company or was negligent. And like if you're way over capacity, it's not like those employees came and hired themselves, right? Like it would be you like, your forecasting and everything was off, which, once you're finding who's responsible to blame, like everyone's lost. Like that's no way to win a game. Like it's terrible. But it is
Well, I
like
guess the final, but in that quote is like a super interesting. It's like, realistically, there are probably a bunch of people in the company that want to be, that shouldn't be here. And it's like, well, he kind of implies that like he knows who they are. So it's like, well, why don't you just
Mhm.
offer the appropriate amount of severance? And I mean, it's not a good experience for everyone, but you can do it. You have the capacity to like move them all on. Like, why aren't, what I mean? It's like, why aren't you taking action to do it? Like, why are you, quote, turning up the heat? Like, why don't you just
Yeah.
do it? It's like, I don't know. So it's a weird, I don't know. To me, like, this is where I always get to back to where it's like, working in corporate America, it's psychologically, it can be very taxing sometimes.
Yeah. I think the only point I'm trying to make here, Brandon, is take your vacation. Just
Like, everyone go to the beach or go do your own thing.
you should do that. Well, Speaking of having a vacation, sometimes going to a conference is like a working vacation, especially if it's related to the industry that you're in and what you're doing. So it is a nice way to have some time off while not dipping into your pool of infinite vacation days. And, also hopefully you have more than a $20 per diem. I don't know what it would be now. $50 probably is like the bare minimum. But if you're interested in figuring out some working vacations, there's a lot of conferences coming up. There's that conference. It's at the end of this month, so it's pretty soon up there in the Wisconsin. Uh, you know, if you want to go there, probably a lovely time of year. There might be a few mosquitoes. I think maybe that's in the fall, maybe not the summer. And then there's also DevOps Days LA, where there's Scale happening as well, July 29th. We have VMware Explorer coming up August 29th. And I realized that is back to back. I will be at DevOps Days DFW, which is the week before that, giving one of the keynotes, which should be fun. There's also the Spring One platform, which hopefully I'll be at, which is going to be December 6th and 8th. And then there's the call for papers for that conference, Texas, is open up. And that's going to be January 16th to 19th in 2023, Brandon. That will be a new year. And someone asked me to come speak at DevOps Days Charlotte. I need to figure out if I can do that or not, but that's also out there. I only went to that event once, but Charlotte's a lovely little place there. So do we have any bureaucracy this weekend, Brandon? Or this week?
No extensive bureaucracy this weekend, or this week rather. I just want to remind everyone, if you would like a sticker for, you know what you should do, not just for your laptop, but you should actually maybe put it on your Yeti tumbler, while you're enjoying your vacation, or maybe on your bike. We've had several on the bikes, or your cooler. I think that's another place. What you should do, and I'll send you as many as you want. You should just send me your postal address at stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. In fact, somebody sent me one of the longest postal addresses. They even explained it to me in the email the other day. It was fantastic. It was super long, and it was some one of the ones in the UK, but it had like a town, like I don't even know. They had like a town, a county. There was like 4 or 5 different things to get it there. So hopefully that one arrived. And I always learn a lot about the postal systems when people write in. So send me your postal address, and I'll send you some stickers.
Was it like Benson Mill on Tam, Surrey, 1059 XJC? Like
Yeah, I mean, it did have like, well, that's
and
always the thing.
that's not even the street name. The street name was
Yeah,
somewhere else. It was like above Mixed Pub, 95 Way Street.
yeah, it's something to that effect. And it's always weird to me when what I think of as a zip code is it has numbers and letters in it. You're like, I just still have a hard time. That's maybe kind of like your AM PM. I'm like, wait a minute, other countries are mixing letters and numbers in a postal code. Can't have that. I think it's crazy. But
you should look up some addresses in Jakarta and Singapore and blow your mind.
I probably couldn't even comprehend it.
Well, there really are free stickers. I mean, I feel like at some point your wife is going to be like, Brandon, we have this whole room in our house full of stickers. I want you to get rid of them so that we can start using.
She has some. Hey, I put some on her tumblers and her fancy water bottles. So doesn't have to just be for the tech people. You can also make your loved ones if you will, market. And that's how I sell it. See, no one else at the family pool is going to have this sticker, so this bottle is yours. That's how I tell people they should do it.
You're reminding me. I don't know if I said that when I was in Texas. We went by a Buc-ee's and we got one of those off-brand Yeti things.
Mm-hmm.
And we my son, he likes snakes, so we got the yellow one that has the "Don't Tread on Me" snake on it, right?
Okay.
And now if we were living, this is what I realized is great about it. If we were living in Texas, unfortunately, all the iconography of like Texas rebellion and independence has been taken over by like the crazy right-wing people, right? So you definitely, as someone in my philosophic position, you cannot own an item like that because it's a totem that's been appropriated by people, who I don't share views with. However, you bring it over to the Netherlands, no one knows what the fuck that is. So you just have like a cool little tumbler that you can use, which is fun there. So there's a life tip for you if you want to use some symbolism that at one point was sort of kind of not so bad, but has become bad symbolism. Just move to another country and bring it with you, and then you'll be cool. That'll work out. Well, speaking of being cool, what's your recommendation this week, Brandon?
All right. Well, I just want to give full credit here. So Christopher was the one that I recently sent. It was in the UK, and this address had 5 different lines. And it turns out, I don't want to, I won't talk about it too much because I don't want to reveal where he lives. But like, originally, one of the things in there is Inglewood. And when you think of Inglewood, Kote, what comes to mind? Does anything immediately jump to your mind?
Snoop Dogg.
Exactly. And I was like, I read this when I first read it. I was like, this is so cool. Like, we have listeners in Inglewood, but it turns out that's someplace in the United Kingdom. And there was like 5 other things I had to put on there. So Christopher, I hope you got your, and he actually even referenced, he said that because clearly he's been asked a lot about like when you write Inglewood, he gets asked a lot about this, that like, no, he's like, it doesn't have anything to do with Long Beach. So I was like, he anticipated so many of my questions in his original email. I was like, this is like really well thought out. So Christopher, hopefully you got your stickers. Hopefully I sent them to the right address. For my recommendation this week, something kind of simple. I went watched Shining Girls on the old Apple TV Plus. It's pretty good. I think I'd give it like a B plus. Little mystery, a little bit of sci-fi. So if you're looking for something to watch on your summer vacation, something that's sort of just like kind of just fun, simple, check out Shining Girls.
There you go. That's almost like that's a way to maximize when you go back to the kitchen table board and you're making the case for your annual performance review that you've maximized profits. You can be like, not only that, we threw in watching Shining Girls, and we all enjoyed that. So I think that was a great offsite that we had. Really boosted morale, and I think that yet again proves why I should be given 150% bonus this year instead of just 100% per plan. So that's good. Well, my recommendation, we had some friends in town this week, and they were the first set of friends who like just totally bought into the idea of renting bikes on day one and biking everywhere. Most people don't do that. They were 2 adults and 2 kids, and so I had to go pick up a bike. So we went to the neighborhood. There's a place here, a little chain called we would call them Black Bikes, and they're called the Het Zwart Fietsplan. Sorry for the Dutch listeners. I pronounced that very poorly. But they've got places everywhere. And if you want to rent bikes, you should go there. Those people are pretty chill. I mean, I think it's one of these situations where, like, because it's a chain, like if you knew your corner bike shop person, they would be cheaper and like blah, blah, blah. But, like it's kind of like the Target of bikes, I think. And you can go there and you can rent bikes. The first place we went, they didn't have a bike for one of the kids. They didn't have bikes small enough, but we just went to another one, and sure enough, they had them. And I think it was pretty affordable. It was fine. And basically, my friend rented them for 2 days, and he kept them for 3.5. And I was like, "Do you need to go return them?" He's like, "No, they just said they'd charge me another day." So see, no fees. And not only that, you can return them at any location. It's like this is how you think renting cars would work. And also you don't have to fill it up with gas. Like I think they might fill the tires for you if you needed that. So it's a good deal. Now, funny story there. We went to one place and my friend rented a bike. Then we biked up to the next place to see if they had a bike for the kid. And he had left, this being a first time Amsterdam tourist on a bike, he left his bike unlocked in front of there. And so he came out after renting the bike and he's like, "Where's my bike?" And I was like, I have never seen anyone steal a bike in plain sight like this. I mean, I don't think it's stolen, and I didn't say it this way. In my mind, I was like, this would be a pretty awesome life story if that happened. But it turns out that, and this is, I feel like, and I mean this in a good way, this is a very, very responsible, maybe Dutch thing, is one of the employees saw that there was a bike outside, one of their bikes, unlocked, and they're like, "Oh, someone must return this bike," so they just took it inside and processed it. Right, so they were being tidy and cleaning things up.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
Right, and so I would have never thought of that, but my friend did. He's like, "What if they took it?" And so he went inside, and yep, sure enough. And so it actually took some time to re-rent it, but it was overall a pleasant experience. So there you go. If you're in the Netherlands, and I don't know if they're all over the Netherlands, but definitely in Amsterdam, just go to the Zwart Fietsplein and Fietsen. Just go to Zwart Fiets. That's what they call it, and rent your bikes there. It'll be super nice. They're good bikes, good stuff. So with that, if you're biking around some town, making sure not to get killed or killed anyone else on a bike, as you navigate crazy traffic and things going on. You're listening to some podcast, thinking about how we're going to put together the case for the kitchen table board here. Yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. It's been Software Defined Talk. You can get the show notes for this episode at softwaredefinedtalk.com/366. And, if you are enjoying your vacation, maybe go back and download all the past episodes 5 times each and just listen through them. You'll understand the history, the lore. You'll come up to speed on all sorts of things. You can also remind us of things that we talked about that we contradict ourselves with over and over again, which would be fun. That'd be great. Feel free to write a transcript, send those in, and maybe we'll publish them. With that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
All right, good episode, Kote. We made it. The baby seems happy now, or the baby's not crying, I should say. All right, well, hey, listen, I did like, we got a little comment from YouTube. I always like when people watch on YouTube. That's sort of,
Yes.
I don't know, Peter, he's giving us a little schooling on, well, it turns out UTC, 24-hour time is used by, and does that mean, so is he saying there, I hear pilots and air traffic controllers use coordinated universal time in 24 hours format. So are they, so is that not local? Like if you're in an airport, like are they just working off the GMT?
Yeah, I don't know what isn't that what Zulu time is like in movies?
Zulu means you're always local. I guess you could say Zulu, right? You could be like, it's like for me, it's what is it?
I thought Zulu meant UTC. Maybe that's the thing is like I think the military does operate off of like UTC or Greenwich or whatever the fuck. And then I guess that's why you would need a separate word to be like, this is Zulu time instead of real time.
Okay, because he's saying I guess the Air Force is still looking at, I don't know, he's got a whole bunch of other acronyms. So I guess, it turns out there's going to be multiple versions of 24-hour time. That's what I'm learning from this quote. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter, for educating us on even more complicated ways to tell time.
I think this is how you open up the 7th grade philosophy class. Is you're like, hey, welcome to the first day of 7th grade philosophy. I want y'all to take 5 minutes and tell me what time is. Just write down what you think time is, and then I'm going to call in a few people, and we're just going to discuss it. And then you'll be like, let me blow your mind. Like here, people think about time in wholly different ways. It really is there a time? Just make up stuff.
Well, I like this one. Peter's on fire here. I don't know. Is this true? He's has some official definition here. Price's law. Have you heard of this? Here's how he defines it.
No.
Price's statistical law states that 50% of any given result is generated by the square root of the number of those who contributed to it. So 2%. But how do you know who is that 2%? Right. So that's sort of, maybe that is like an answer to the whole executive thing, because that's like, there's that shorthand when they say about marketing. It's like marketing, only 50% of the marketing works, but like, nobody knows which 50%, or demand generation or whatever, something like that. So maybe that really is interest, that CEO question is like, the reason executives are frustrated is they just know not everybody's like contributing, but they just have no idea who it is. So maybe that was what Zuckerberg would tell us. He would just say, yeah, like, I just don't know what, he knows. I know a bunch of people shouldn't be here. I just have no idea which ones, which like, maybe that would be like to your point about saying the quiet part out loud. Now that would be a part I could get behind. Be like, well, yeah, I feel the same way, Mark. I don't know why, like why anything works. I have no idea. So that'd be fun.
Yeah. And it also like, I mean, obviously when you do an equation like this, the time period is taken into account, but that's another angle of like, when we here at Meta were doing that whole thing, we had ads on the back of TVs on American Airlines where we had gliders flying over the world to provide internet. These people were extremely valuable, but now we realize that was a crazy fucking idea. They are not valuable anymore.
Well, that is, I think that is a really good example of what I've always thought about too, is like, I have it's just a general rule, like completely unscientific. It's like, you usually hear this from executives during a period of financial downturn or frustration, right? That is like, that seems to go hand in hand, right? It seems to go hand in hand where like the executive is really frustrated and feels like some percentage of the people shouldn't be there, but that almost always means the company's not doing great. Like you rarely hear like, we are blowing it out and we have never made more money and half the people shouldn't be here, right? I don't know. Maybe they still feel it, but it's just like they're just it doesn't matter, right? Like, why would you say it when you're winning? So I don't know. Future discussions. All right, streamers. Well, there was a lot of good discussion in here. Michael, appreciate you watching, and looks like Brian. I think he's going to watch this on Twitch later. So he likes the Twitch experience. So appreciate everyone watching on Twitch. And now it turns out we've actually have people not only watching on YouTube, but we have them actually commenting on YouTube, which is fantastic because that's where all the viewers are, right? Cote, isn't that what we learned, that it's like really YouTube is where the audience is?
Yeah. I think for this kind of content, YouTube is where you want to go. Like if you want to be on Twitch, you have to constantly interact with people and be like, oh, I don't know, Smoky Dog 97. I had a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch, so I'm not really feeling that vibe. Oh, but look at that, Princess Power 72. She's really, well. I don't want to presume they are really on point with that vegan mustard sandwich.
That's fantastic. Well, luckily we're on any of them. So thanks for everyone watching on the stream on Twitch, on YouTube, or any of the other platforms we happen to be streaming to. And so we'll be back next week. Cote and I will probably record a little bit earlier. Who knows? Maybe the baby be up. Maybe the baby be asleep. Tune in next week to find out what happens. Until then, we'll talk to you next time.